everyone. Welcome to Lauren's Scraplot and my weekly episode of Show Me How It's Done. Just so you know, if our Facebook feed goes down, this is recorded, so you can always head to my YouTube page, Lauren's Scraplot, and catch the recording there. I'd also love your support to keep these videos going by just hitting the like and subscribe button on that channel if you enjoyed today's video. So today I gave a little bit of a teaser by pulling some household cleaners out of a little bag. So if you're a parent or if you are a hardcore crafter, you probably have these little things called baby wipes hiding around your house in every nook and cranny. So today I want to show you how you can use those products to make a really fun background for your card. So I tried not to go too Christmassy today, but I couldn't help myself for part of the project because I'm so in love with some of our new stamps. So these are from the Painted Christmas Suite. They're the two stamps that are highlighted in that feature. And both of these stamps have coordinating dies. We're going to use the ones that come with the Christmas season today, and we'll use the ones that come with Christmas to Remember another day. But what I loved about this card that I designed was that it doesn't have to be a Christmas card. It has a very neutral sentiment, and it can go with a fall or winter kind of theme as well. So without further ado, let's get going. To follow along with today's card, you're going to need a couple pieces of paper cut. So let's do that right now. So our base for today is a piece of early espresso. I have cut this at 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I've put a score mark at 5.5 down the middle there. Now for both the front and the inside of my card, you'll need a piece of Very Vanilla. These two are measuring the exact same at 4 inches by 5 1/4. And just a reminder that I do have all these measurements written out for you on the YouTube comments, so you don't have to keep them in your heads if you don't want to. Okay, so my inspiration for today's card came from the designer series paper that you see under the project. I didn't put any of this paper on the card, but I used the background images as the inspiration for how I'm going to decorate the back of my card here. So let's get going. I need a little bit of tea. Okay. Don't need that. Excuse me. Okay, so typically I always teach you guys to get pieces out of your way when you're doing a project. So that usually involves putting our inside piece on the inside of the card first. However, today we're going to do a little bit of stamping on that inside piece, so we will end up keeping it handy. What you can do is just put the card base aside. You don't need that at the moment. And hello to you, Betty, and everyone else who's watching live. Thanks for joining. You're going to need both of these vanilla papers handy. And we're also going to set ourselves up with a little baby wipe station. So what I like to do is grab one of our empty stamp cases. These are available in sets of, I think, 8 in the catalog. So they come in really handy for storing things like embellishments, paper scraps, and also doing this technique because I can quickly and easily wipe it off when I'm done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach into my giant bag of baby wipes, and I'm just going to grab 2 of them, 2 or 3 is fine, and just layer them on top of one another and then fold it over again. So I find 2 is more than enough, especially in this case that I can so easily clean. And then make sure to seal up your baby wipes so they don't lose all their moisture. We're going to build ourselves a little palette. So as I mentioned, I really liked the color scheme in that designer series paper. So the primary colors that they used, that Stampin' Up! Used, were Garden Green, Evening Evergreen, Real Red, and Pear Pizzazz. So those are the 4 inks and refills that I am going to use for my palette today. So you can start with any of the colors that you like. It does not matter at all. All you're going to do to start is pick one and just start going randomly with dots all over your palette here, okay? You don't need too much because as you can already see, it does start to spread out. And the more we move the ink around, the more it's going to mix as well. So then grab your second color and just put it in close proximity to that original color. Doesn't need to be right on top of it because it'll bleed into its partner as it is. Okay. Add a little bit of red. So you can use any color combination with this technique, which is kind of why I like it. So I'm using a more Christmassy fall winter scheme, but you could just as easily grab a set and perhaps do a nice vibrant floral background too. Okay. So don't worry if there's a little bit of white space. As soon as we start stamping and letting this sit a little bit more, those colors are going to mix, no problem. So don't worry about making sure every inch of your space is covered. Okay. So next what I have done is I've taken 4 of the stamps from this set and I've just mounted them on blocks, and we're going to use these 4 to do our messy stamping in the background. So you can start with perhaps the paper you're going to do the entire background on. Let's just do that one first. So it's completely up to you how you start, but I like to just dab a couple times. And then as you stamp, your colors are going to look different every single time you stamp, because the more you get in here, the more you are actually mixing the colors, and that palette is going to be so fun to work with for multiple projects. I do hope that you use this ink for more than just one card. Okay, so here we go. We can always come back and add more leaves later, but because I have 4 stamps to work with, I like to work from the largest stamp to the smallest because I want to make sure that my large ones are really having enough room for me to fit them on the card. If I was to start with the smaller ones, I may ruin my chances of being able to fit these ones in. Okay, so you can see as I'm stamping, that ink is mixing as we go. And that's exactly what you want to see. Okay, so you're going to get really, really fun projects the more you work, the more you play. Okay, this one's the Acorns, so definitely not a typical color scheme for an acorn, but that's the fun of this, is you can make this whatever you want. And it's just kind of a fun little thing to play with. So this guy fits really nicely in all this open space. And then you can fill in some of those edge pieces as well. Okay, just adding wherever you want a little bit of extra. Okay, so this is your fun little background for the entire card. But I mentioned I wanted a little bit of imagery on the inside of the card. So just along the bottom, we're super fast. I'm going to just stamp each image one time. And that will give you just a really fun base. Okay, and the reason I put this in a stamp case as well is because if I need to, finish up this project and then I want to use the same palette for another card, I can easily close this up and it will guaranteed last at least for the rest of the day, but probably for a couple days even after that. All you may have to do is just add a little bit more ink to your palette to just refresh it. But this is ready for me to continue using for another project. And I'm not going to put my fingers in it. So this guy, let's get him out of the way because that is what I like to do. And then we're going to have some fun with our background piece. Okay. So the adhesives of choice that you'd probably really want to use for this card are the seal or double-sided tape, whatever you prefer is up to you. You don't need to put it all over that white piece. It just needs to be able to stick on the inside here, okay? And this also has more than enough room if you wanted to put another sentiment stamped on the inside. Okay, so this card looks absolutely stunning if I was to just start playing right now, leave it as is. I could cut myself out a couple background pieces and add a sentiment. I could add some of these pine cones and leaves like I'm going to do later. So you can do that if you want. If you want to step up your card and do this kind of grunge look, you're going to follow the rest of these directions, okay? So, grunge look. Super, super fun. Very, very messy. So let's get going. The first thing that we're going to do is a little bit of edge work. So I've got my early espresso ink and one of our little finger sponge daubers. And all I'm going to do is just go around the edge of my project and slightly darken that frame. So hopefully you can already see the difference between the sections that now I've edged and the ones that are not done yet. You've got just this beautiful shadow look to work with. Like this. Okay, so you can always go back. I would suggest adding less color the first time, and then you can always go around the edges and add a little bit more to your project if you'd like. Okay, so there we go. We've got a really nice edge, but we're not done. We want to add a little bit more shading. So I'm going to grab one of my blending brushes and just go in a nice little circle to pick up some ink. You always start off your page and just kind of work your way on. And now we're just going to go around the edge. So once again, don't worry if you've got just a little bit of ink the first time. We want small amounts to start, and then you can build that color up as you want to. Okay, just lay a little bit down so you can see what it looks like all the way around. And then if you want to go darker, now's the perfect time. I like that brown look. Okay, so I've left the inside of my project. One, because I'm covering most of it up with a tag, but two, there are a couple little spots here that you just don't want it to all be blended into one uniform look. You do want a little bit of that original color just staying as is. Okay, so there are now two ways, hopefully you've seen on my sample, I've added a lot of splatter here. So there's two ways you can do this. One is to use this gorgeous splatter stamp from, sorry, I should have grabbed it. Let me grab that stamp set for you. The Quiet Meadow stamp. So this large background stamp. And the second is to use a aqua painter and some ink. So I'm going to show you both because I've actually added both to this card. So with this background stamp, I am simply just going to do very haphazard blobs all over the card. Okay, doesn't have to cover everything, and you don't want it to cover everything because we're still coming in with more dots. So if you only own the stamp or something similar, we've had lots of stamps with this grunge look, this is a perfect way for you to add the background. If you don't own a stamp like this and you want to play, you can grab an early espresso reinker and an aqua painter, and we can add dots that way as well. So we're going to do that just for the fun of it. So I like to use one of our clear blocks for a palette because they're so easy for me to clean. So you need just the tiniest of dots of the color of choice. This was once again the early espresso, and I didn't clean this one the last time. So I'm just going to drip, drip, drop a few drops of water. So now I've got a nice big pile. So I'm going to pick up a bunch so that if I was to actually just let this sit and face down, gravity would make lots of drips down for me. So if you would like to test this, you can just tap, 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 and you should start seeing a splatter of color just dropping off the edge of the pen. Okay, so make sure you've got nothing around you because you don't want to make a mess, and just gently start doing that over top of your project. Okay, the closer you are to the paper, the bigger the drops are going to seem. So if you want really tiny mist, move back, but make sure you're not spraying your entire desk around it too, okay? So you can add as many dots or as few dots as you want, but when you're fully satisfied, now make sure to clean this off. So the aqua painters, as long as they run clear, that means they're clean. So you just keep rubbing and rubbing, little tornado down here, until this water is now running clear. And that means the tip of my brush is clean and I can actually use this for a different project and a different color later on, okay? So I'm going to move this so I don't put it anywhere near my project. You might want to just let this dry for a couple seconds because remember, those are wet dots. And if you want it to dry faster, you can also just put rubbing alcohol inside your pen. This is a great time for you to do a little bit of cutting. So with the dies from the Season to Remember set, I have cut myself out with this guy here, this one, a background for my Evening Evergreen. And then this tag right up here, I used the Very Vanilla once again. And I just stamped a sentiment in early espresso from that sister stamp, the Christmas to Remember. Also with this set, I'm going to give myself a few pieces to play with. So I have stamped this little branch here in early espresso, or sorry, not early espresso, in Evening Evergreen. I've stamped 2 of them. And then I've cut them out with the coordinating die so that I have a couple branches. I have stamped 2 little acorns for myself. So I wanted the 2-tone color. So with this large background, I used soft suede, and then I stamped over top of it with early espresso just to give a little bit of tone to my pine cone. And you can cut those out with the dies as well. And last but not least, I wanted a little extra for my project. So I just used this leaf. I didn't stamp it, but I used it on our gold vellum, and it's just absolutely stunning. So we're gonna attach all of those to the project in just a second here. So this guy's dry. Let's get it on the front of our card now, and we will start building those extras. There. Perfection. Okay, so for my background here, I thought it would be really nice to have a little bit of a gold feature in the back. So if you can see that, I just used a little bit of some of our metallic thread, and I tied myself a giant bow So sorry, I'll grab a second one here. Trim you. There we go. So I have a giant bow here. I like giant bows. And all I'm going to do is attach it to the back of this tag. Okay, the easiest way to attach it is just rest it in place and put a tiny bit of tape across the middle of that bow. Now, while it's flipped over, go ahead and attach dimensionals to this tag. And that will just pop it off of your page, give it a little bit of uniqueness. You don't want it to blend in with the background there. Okay, so I've put that right in the center of my card, like so. Next, I wanted my sentiment. So I'm going to pop this guy up on dimensionals as well. And you can see I love the adage that, you know, every paper has two sides, because I stamped this one first and it was just a little light in the middle. So I didn't love it. So I flipped it over and now I'm happy. So there, you got to see one of my little try again moments. All right, so this guy will rest right over top, like so. Now the fun begins for adding all your little pieces. So we're going to start with our two little branches, and I'm putting a dimensional only at the very bottom of each of them, because I'm going to actually just put it in this green space, and that's the only place they need to be added. So 1 and 2. Very nice. Okay, 2 to go. Now we're going to add our little pine cones. So I thought it was fun to have them kind of resting together. So I just attached them with a glue dot on the back corner of one of them. And then you can just kind of offset them so they look like they're little buddies. When you figure out where you'd like them, you can go ahead and add a nice dimensional right in that middle spot and rest these on top. Okay, do keep in mind you don't want it to go too far over the edge, because we want this to fit inside an envelope, and that would make it a little challenging for you. Okay, so you may have to kind of move these a couple times, and that's fine. Glue dots are easy to maneuver. There we go. So there's our fun little card. If you want to step it up even more, here's where you're going to add that little gold bling. So I've cut this out of the gold vellum. I'm going to put a glue dot on that very bottom section and just tuck this into the background until I'm happy with where it's sitting. You want this part to stand up because that just gives it a little life. And if you want to get even more fancy, we've got some gold holly leaves in that suite. So go ahead and grab a couple of them. Once again, glue dots are your best friend. Put one on the back and just tuck this in wherever you'd like it to sit. Okay, so there's one. And again on the back. There's 2. I'm just going to tuck that guy in there. I like glue dots because you can't see through. And to top this one off, I wanted some jewels. So I really love the look of these clear and silver epoxy gems. I've been playing with them so much, as you all know. But I wanted some red. So the fun thing with those is you can take your blends marker and you can color them. Okay, so I just go all the way around. Our blends markers are alcohol based, so this will dry very quickly. You just want to be careful to go all the way around the gem so you get everything colored in. Okay, wait a couple seconds, but alcohol dries very fast, so they're good to go almost right away. We can add that to our card. Like so. So it's kind of got a vintage feel almost to it, but I really, really love this technique. So I haven't played with it in a long time, and I think we'll probably end up coming back to it, but I just really wanted to show you guys a project with this today. So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for tuning in again if your Facebook feed wasn't working. And I hope to see you tonight if you're attending my monthly card class, and next week if you're just enjoying live. So I'll see you guys later. Bye!